It all started on a mild spring evening when I first met Sara. We were both waiting for a bus outside our neighborhood market, and she was standing there in a faded blue cardigan, scrolling through her phone with a faint smile. There was something about her quiet presence that drew me in. After an awkward hello and a few exchanged words about the weather, I offered to walk her home instead of waiting for the late bus. She accepted, and that short walk became the first of many. Sara and I fell into an easy rhythm after that. Our late-night phone calls stretched for hours, filled with laughter, secrets, and shy confessions. She once told me, "You make me feel safe," and those words stayed with me, echoing in my chest every time I saw her smile. Being with her made the world feel lighter, and for months, I convinced myself nothing could come between us. At home, life was less perfect. My mother had remarried a few years back, and her husband, Cameron, had moved in soon after. He wasn't cruel or unkind, but he wasn't warm either. He worked long hours, rarely spoke at the dinner table, and spent most evenings watching TV, with a glass of whiskey in hand. We stayed out of each other's way, and that arrangement suited me just fine. The first time Sara came over, Cameron surprised me. He actually smiled, which was rare for him, and even stood up to shake her hand. "So this is the girl you keep sneaking off to see?" he chuckled, making my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Sara laughed politely, saying it was nice to meet him. But later that night, I caught myself thinking about the way his eyes lingered on her as she walked past. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, what reason would I have to doubt either of them? Sara was sweet, loyal, and always made time for me despite her busy schedule. And Cameron, well, he might not have been my favorite person, but he was married to my mother.
He wouldn't dare cross that line.
For weeks I ignored the little signs. The way Cameron seemed to linger around when Sara visited, asking her about her classes, complimenting her hair. Or how Sara's laugh sounded just a little forced whenever he was around. I convinced myself it was nothing, just my own insecurities playing tricks on me. But then came that rainy evening when Sara cut our date short. She stood at my door, fidgeting with her purse, and said she was feeling tired. "I just need some rest," she murmured before kissing me on the cheek and leaving. As I watched her walk away, something in her voice, in the way she avoided my eyes, left me uneasy. For the first time, a quiet doubt settled in my chest, whispering that maybe not everything was as it seemed. The days that followed only deepened the unease gnawing at me. Sara still came around, still smiled at me the way she used to, but something about her felt different. I'd catch her staring at her phone during our conversations, her thumbs flying across the screen as she stifled little grins. When I asked who she was texting, she would shake her head and say it was just a friend from class. I wanted to believe her, so I forced myself to laugh it off. But it wasn't just her behavior that bothered me, it was his. Cameron seemed to have undergone some quiet transformation. He started wearing crisp shirts instead of his usual wrinkled tees, and he'd slick his hair back before sitting down at the dinner table. My mother even commented one night, half joking, "What's gotten into you lately? You're dressing like a man half your age." Cameron only smirked and said he felt like keeping up appearances. I couldn't ignore the way his eyes followed Sara whenever she walked into the room. Once, I caught them standing a little too close in the kitchen, his hand brushing hers as he handed her a glass of water. They both froze when they saw me, like actors caught in the wrong scene. Sara let out a nervous laugh, saying she'd just been asking him about a recipe. At night, when I was alone in my room, my mind played cruel tricks on me. Every giggle, every sideways glance, every secret smile between them became a shard of doubt lodged in my chest. I'd replay moments over and over, asking myself if I was imagining things, or if the people I trusted most were quietly betraying me under my own roof. One afternoon, when I couldn't take the silence anymore, I finally confronted Sara. We were sitting in the park, and I blurted it out before I could stop myself. "Are you hiding something from me?" She blinked, caught off guard, and then gave me a soft smile, the kind meant to disarm, to soothe. "Of course not," she said, resting her hand on mine. "You're just overthinking again. You always do." Then she kissed my cheek and called me silly, as though my suspicions were nothing more than a childish whim. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that everything was fine, that the girl who once told me I made her feel safe would never hurt me. But that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her words echoed in my mind, and for the first time, they rang hollow. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. And I knew, sooner or later, the truth would find its way out. That night began like any other. The house was quiet, save for the faint hum of rain against the windows. My mother had left earlier to visit my aunt, leaving only me and Cameron at home. Sara had said she couldn't come over that evening. She claimed she was too tired and needed to rest. Around midnight, I woke to an unusual sound. At first I thought it was part of a dream, faint laughter, low and intimate, drifting through the hallway. I sat up, my pulse quickening, and listened. There it was again. A man's chuckle, followed by a soft feminine giggle. I swung my legs off the bed and crept to the door. It was ajar, and from where I stood, I could see that the light downstairs was still on. My heart thudded in my chest, a sickening rhythm of suspicion and fear. As I descended the stairs, I caught sight of her purse sitting on the entryway table. My breath caught. Sara's purse. She had told me she wasn't coming over tonight, so why was it here? My feet felt heavy as I moved closer to the living room. The voices grew clearer, and so did my dread. Peeking through the gap in the doorway, I saw them. There they were, sitting together on the couch, so close their shoulders touched. Cameron had his arm draped casually over Sara's shoulders, and she leaned into him like it was the most natural thing in the world. He murmured something in her ear that made her laugh, that same laugh she once saved just for me. For a moment, my mind refused to accept what my eyes saw. I stood frozen, my fingers gripping the doorframe until my knuckles ached. This couldn't be real. Not Sara. Not Cameron. But then Cameron brushed a strand of her hair behind her ear and pressed his lips to her temple. And she didn't pull away. Something inside me snapped. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair in my rush. The noise made them both look up, and in that instant, the illusion shattered completely. Sara's eyes went wide, her smile collapsing into something like shame. Cameron, on the other hand, just stared at me with a strange, defiant calm. No one spoke. I didn't wait for explanations. My throat tightened as I turned on my heel and bolted out of the house, the cold rain soaking through my shirt as I ran into the night. Behind me, through the haze of rain and heartbreak, I thought I heard Sara call my name. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Everything I believed in had crumbled in that single, unforgiving moment, and I knew there was no going back. The rain didn't stop that night, and neither did I. I walked for what felt like hours, my thoughts spinning like a storm inside my chest. Every step I took seemed to tear another piece of me away. The boy who trusted too easily, who believed love was enough, who thought family meant loyalty. That boy was gone. I ended up at my best friend's place just before dawn. He opened the door, took one look at me, drenched, pale, hollow-eyed, and didn't ask questions. I stayed on his couch that morning, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain ease into silence. My phone buzzed endlessly from where I'd thrown it on the table. Sara had called. Again and again. She'd left messages too. The last one simply read, "I'm sorry. I never meant for you to find out like this." I never replied. When I finally went home 2 days later, the air in the house felt different. My mother sat at the kitchen table, her face drawn and tired. She didn't look up when I walked in. I didn't have to say a word, she already knew. A suitcase sat by the door, and Cameron's keys were on the counter. He was gone. We never spoke about it in detail. She simply said, "He left this morning," and I nodded. It was enough. Sara tried one last time to see me, showing up at the park where we first met. She looked smaller somehow, her usual spark dulled by guilt. When she tried to explain, I cut her off with just 3 words. "We're done here." And then I walked away, not looking back. The weeks that followed were harder than I'd imagined. Nights felt lonelier. My heart still ached whenever I thought of her laugh, her hand in mine, the little future I'd once pictured with her in it. But each morning, the pain dulled just a little more. I started picking up old hobbies, sketching in my notebook, jogging by the river at dawn, spending more time with the friends I'd neglected. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to feel like myself again. One evening, months later, I sat alone on a park bench as the sun set. The air was calm, warm. I thought about Sara and Cameron and realized I didn't feel anger anymore. Just a quiet acceptance. Betrayal changes you, but it doesn't have to define you. That's what I learned. You can let the hurt harden your heart, or you can let it teach you what you deserve. And in that moment, I promised myself I would never again settle for someone who didn't see my worth. To anyone listening to my story, love yourself enough to walk away when someone shows you who they truly are.